Hello friends, my name is Nick, and one of the last times we met up we discussed 10 varieties of Hoya that you won't find in your local houseplant stores, and I had a really good time talking about that. So this week we're going to continue the discussion with 10 different aroids that you won't find in your local houseplant stores. I'm assuming you know what an aroid is if you clicked on today's video, but just in case, an aroid is an umbrella term for the plants that belong to the Araceae family of plants, which includes genera such as Philodendron, Monstera, Syngonium, Anthurium, Syndopsis. There are so many groups of plants that belong to the Araceae family of plants, so we have a lot of good plants to talk about today. You're definitely going to see a good variety of leaf size, leaf texture, leaf color, leaf shape, all of the above, but as I mentioned, these are more than likely not going to be available in your local houseplant stores. If they are available in your local houseplant stores, please thank the people who are working at the stores for keeping things so fresh and exciting. You're more than likely going to have to go digging online for any of these aroids, but I will let you know where I got all of these plants myself so I can at least push you in the right direction as long as they're still available from the places where I got them from. So this one right here is kind of calling out to me to talk about today. I'm also trying to talk about ones that I don't normally talk about. I can't say that's accurate for every single one of these, but I know I'm like a broken record with some really out there aroids, so you're hopefully not going to hear about any of those today. So I'm going to keep things as fresh as possible. This one is a newer Aglaonema to my collection. So Aglaonema is the scientific name for Chinese evergreen. And most Chinese evergreens have some really stunning patterns to the leaves. But as I have a soft spot for like the more plain varieties of plants, I've been keeping an eye out for some of the varieties that lack that fun variegation or color in the leaves. And some of them are just plain green, but this one is a fun blue-green. It's like the Philodendron hostatum of the Aglaonema world, and I'm a really big fan of it. So I got this one from Glasshouse Works, which is a company that I genuinely really enjoy buying houseplants from. I have been buying from them every year for the last couple of years. However, their naming, the plant names that they have on their websites are not always the most accurate. I will let you know that. So the name on this tag, whether it's correct or not, it's just the name that's on this tag, is Aglaonema commutatum picturatum alumina. A total mouthful there, but I really love the alumina. It really gives you that aluminum appearance that this plant has with this glaucous silvery color that is kind of a little bit more shiny. It's less dull than all the other Aglaonema that I have in my collection. Maybe not all of them, but most of the Aglaonemas that I have in my collection. As they do with all plants, they're always hybridizing new varieties of Aglaonema to add to the market, but it seems like that's few and far between compared to like the philodendrons. We're seeing new varieties of philodendron like every week at our local houseplant stores, but it's pretty rare that I see a new variety of Aglaonema, while it still happens. But this variety right here is one that I've personally never seen at a local houseplant store. The only place I've ever seen it is glasshouseworks.com, although I'm sure it's available in other places. I just don't do as much digging as some of you might. And I could imagine that people who are into Aglaonema might not be as interested in this plant because Aglaonemas are known for their complex variegation and their fun coloring, like the Aglaonema chocolate, hugely popular and looks nothing like this. That has that fun pink color and the red undersides and actual variegation to the leaves. This is lacking all of that, and that's why I love it and really appreciate it. But if you are into like the blue, silver, glaucous leaves, I think this is not one to be skipped. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this grows. As with Aglaonemas that are more out there, I'll usually get them as just one plant when I get them from the houseplant store or purchase them online. But these plants do produce pups, similar to like an aloe plant would, or a snake plant, think like that, or a Spathiphyllum, a peace lily. So these will start to produce little offshoots as it grows over time, but as I've only had this one for like 2 years maximum, I'm probably exaggerating there, it has yet to do anything but put up a couple of leaves, but giving a very similar vibe to this lovely Aglaonema with all the full-on silver color is this really lovely Syndopsis. This is a Syndopsis silver hero, and as the name suggests, it's completely encased in that silver flecking. In fact, it's not even flecking if you're just familiar with the standard Syndopsis pictus and how it's got those silver speckles all over the leaves. This is just completely encasing the leaf, and on top of that, it's sporting these larger leaves that you'll see on more of like the Syndopsis pictus exotica. This is like the exact opposite of the the Syndopsis Jade Satin, the just like standard full-on green leaf variety of Syndopsis that you're going to see probably at most of your local houseplant stores nowadays. I think that one's picked up popularity enough. But I have personally yet to stumble across this full-on silver version right here, so it's really been blowing me away, and it's been a very easy grower for me. It's just put off a bunch of new leaves for me. You can see the brighter ones, the ones that are just more vibrant on camera today, are the ones that just have grown in for me over the past couple of weeks. I did actually unbox this one recently. I got this one from Plant Haven Toronto. As the name of their company suggests, they are located in Canada, and they do ship to both Canada and the United States. And their selection's incredible. If you like Hoyas, you're really gonna like what you see on planthaventoronto.com, but they also have a really good array of other plants, including aroids and begonias. So this Syndopsis Silver Hero is one of the plants that I got from them. And you can use code NICK2023 to save 15% on planthaventoronto.com if you are looking to add some really cool plants in your collection. So like I said, if you're a big fan of aroids, begonias, or Hoyas, definitely check out planthaventoronto.com. I do think we've been seeing a good number of new varieties of Syndopsis hitting the market in the recent months or even the past year or so, but most of them look exactly the same. So they're all just like different variations of the standard Syndopsis pictus, which it's not doing it for me, honey. I don't care if there's a little extra flecking here or there. I want full ass different leaves, and this Syndopsis Silver Hero, is hitting that nail on the head, and I'm very much looking forward to when this plant starts to trail. I'm imagining with this having the larger leaf variety, just like my Jade Satin and my Syndopsis Exotica, that it's probably gonna grow on the slower side in comparison to the standard Syndopsis Pictus Argyrius that grows like a mile a minute. But still, after getting these couple of new leaves on this plant, I'm feeling like we're getting started for the growing season, so I should get probably at least 4 or 5 new leaves out of this plant before it starts to slow down for the fall in a couple of months. So only time will tell with that, but Syndopsis across the board have been very, very easy growers for me. I love how they curl in their leaves, like so, when it's time to water them. So they'll tell you from across the room, hey, I need a good watering, and they will perk right back up when it's time to water them. So it's a perfect plant to hang up. I love my Syndopsis Exotica for that, because have it up on the wall, and as soon as I see it's curling its leaves, I just pull out my stepladder, get up there and water it, and I don't have to worry about getting up there and feeling the soil like every 5 days just to check what's up to make sure I'm not just gonna have a dead plant randomly one day. So I'm a really big fan of you guys for that. Thank you so much. But I do absolutely love how similar the vibe is for both of these plants right here, this Aglaonema and Syndopsis with just these full silver leaves. I'm happy to see plants like this. I feel like before all we really had was the Philodendron Hostatum. And it's a fine plant, but these are just doing it for me way more. So I'm clearly a big fan of these silvery plants. I feel like it's a plant trend waiting to happen. If it already hasn't happened, I'm just unaware of it. But I know people are also a really big fan of like silver flecking on the leaves, like I was talking about the Syndopsis with those little flecks. I think this is giving a very similar vibe to that. So this is a Philodendron Maybe Eye. I'm not really sure how to pronounce this one. This one I did get from a friend as a cutting, so I unfortunately do not have a place to share where I got this for you. But I'm really fortunate that my plant looks the way it does right now. When I got this gifted from my friend, it was like 3 leaves that probably looked a little bit bigger than this, and it was a fabulous looking plant in a 4-inch pot. And after a week or two, I went ahead and potted it in something. I think maybe I potted it in this. That would make the most sense, which maybe this was too big of a jump. I don't know. Maybe it was a humidity problem. It could have been a lighting problem. So many possible things could have gone wrong, but all 3 of those leaves just were not happy with me, and they died back. So I was left with just a stump. You can still basically see the stump inside the soil right now. And I covered it with a plastic bag, got a couple of leaves that would grow in. I would take the plastic bag off, just like a standard clear Ziploc bag, and hoping those leaves would acclimate to the environment. And this probably happened 3 or 4 times, where I would take the bag off, leaves die back, put the bag back on, leaves grow. So I'm very, very happy right now that I have like 10 to 12 leaves on this plant, and they're all staying perfectly fine and happy. No browning. Some of them have come in kind of funky, as you can see on the back side of the plant. Some of them were kind of curled up. Maybe it was just getting acclimated to its surroundings as we were getting started. But I'm so thrilled to see how this plant's looking right now. In fact, it just recently got too top heavy that I really got to consider staking this thing, especially as you can see how skinny the stem is at the base here. Or perhaps I can consider propagating this from where it's getting all hefty and let it regrow from the base and hopefully have two wonderful Philodendron Maybe Eyes. I also think, mild disclaimer, that there might be a few different varieties of Philodendron Maybe out there and I might just be unaware of it, but we're just gonna call this Philodendron Maybe for this video. Anywho, I know this leaf shape is just really popular amongst most philodendron collectors, and there's a lot of new varieties that have been popping up on the market, like the Philodendron, is it the Plowmanii I think I got from the Philadelphia Flower Show, and it has this very similar leaf shape, and it's nice to see those plants entering the market for a very low price. Even I was just at a houseplant store recently, and they had so many wonderful philodendrons that I was like, holy crap, these plants were like $100 a year or two ago, and now they're like $25. So it's so great to see the way that the market is moving. However, I've still never seen this Philodendron Maybe at a local houseplant store. I'm sure there could be some reasoning behind that, but I'm just growing really, really fond of this plant, especially as it's getting some character the way it's just creeping over the edge of the pot, just kind of forming just this low-lying mat of leaves that I could only imagine if this was growing along the forest floor, just kind of clambering along until it's looking for a tree to climb up, that it would just be like a nice little just bushlet of Philodendron Maybe. I'm a really big fan of it. I really don't have that much else to say about this plant. I obviously have not had very good luck with it until recently. But the leaf shape combined with the variegation is just killer. And I also have a soft spot for the petiole. I think it's really fun. It's giving like the ruffles that the mature Monstera deliciosa gets, but this is just much thinner. Like it's just like a little bit of plastic that just like expelled from the petiole. So I just love little characteristics about plants like that. No fuzzy leaves, no extra texture to be really appreciated here. It's really just all about that leaf shape combined with the variegation. But if we want to talk about some fun leaf shape, let's talk about this Monstera over here. So this is a Monstera Subpanata. And just like my Philodendron Maybe, I am so grateful that this plant is looking like this right now. When I got this from my friend, the same friend who actually gifted me the Philodendron Maybe, so unfortunately I can't point you in the right direction. Actually though, I think I have seen this available on that kensphilodendrons.com. I've never personally ordered from Ken's Philodendrons, but I've heard plenty of good things out there, so just letting you know that to at least let you know somewhere where you can find this plant, because it's just really so freaking cool. Anyway, it had like 2 small leaves on it, probably a little bit smaller than the leaves that I have on the plant now when I was first gifted it, and I put it in this pot after a couple of weeks and put this little stake in the plant just for funsies, just for aesthetics, hopefully to give it something to grab onto, but really just for aesthetics. And those leaves died back after a short period of time, just like with the Philodendron Maybe. I'm really learning my lesson with some of these more out there aroids, I can tell you that much. But for at least a year, this was sitting as just a leafless little stump, literally exactly like my Philodendron Maybe, but less enticing because it's just like as thick or thinner than a standard pothos vine. So this little thing inside of soil was just really testing my ability to hold on to what I felt was actual garbage. But that is a learning lesson for me as well, because I see if I hold on to a plant and I give it exactly what it wants, which is apparently not what I was giving it before, that it can grow into something really nice. And it's grown these 4 leaves for me over the past couple of months, and I feel like by the end of the growing season we're going to have a good 4 or 5 more to really fill out this plant. And more exciting is that I just put this wooden stake in here, like I said, for funsies, for the aesthetic, but this plant is very aware of its existence, because as of the 2nd leaf on this plant, that node has officially attached to the wood here, which is something that you have happen way more in the humidity of a greenhouse and not the lack of humidity that we have in our standard homes. And as I mentioned earlier, I feel like every week we see new variety of philodendron at our local houseplant stores, but we never see new varieties of Monstera. They're literally not coming up with them. I don't know what's going on, but there's just the variegated Monstera just monopolize that market. So growers are just like, why even bother? But no, I think Monstera are really cool. I think that this is like the more appropriate Monstera for the home than the Monstera Pinnata partita, which I really wanted to grow for some time. But from seeing them grow in botanical gardens, those get huge and need to grow up like many, many, many feet to get those big, fun, palm frondy-like leaves. So as much as I would love to grow Monstera Pinnata partita Trust, I think this is the apartment-appropriate version of the plant, and I'm a really, really big fan of it. Oh my gosh, it's really just Such a beautiful plant. One of my new favorite houseplants ever since watching this thing grow just so wonderfully over the last couple of months. And even though it was kind of a diva at first, I do feel like we're gonna have some smooth sailing with this Monstera. Offering a very similar leaf shape to that, but probably just a little bit more accessible, would be the Amidrium Zipelianum. So once again, a plant that I've personally never seen sold at a local houseplant store, but I feel like out of all of the plants I'm talking about in today's video, I feel like this is the one that's most likely to be available, just because I feel like it's been on people's radar for long enough that it should be available in 4-inch pots in every houseplant store, but it's just not yet. There are some varieties of Amydrium that are newer that I've been seeing on like Instagram and stuff over the last couple of years, but this is the OG variety of Amydrium that has been exciting people for the last couple of years. I've had this thing for probably 3 or 4 years now, probably even longer than that. I know I normally exaggerate, but I think I'm under exaggerating at this point, which doesn't sound right because this thing has not grown very much from what it looks like. This loves to shoot out runners for days. When I say runner, I mean a vine that doesn't have any leaves on it. What's basically going on is the plant is not receiving exactly what it wants. What it wants is a big old tree to climb up, so it starts sending up runners to start looking for that tree to grab onto, and unfortunately in our homes, it's really never gonna find that. So I let this thing shoot off runners for probably like 2 years before I said, hey, you know what? I'm gonna cut them back. So I cut most of them back. I have one of them that I kind of just spiraled around the inside of the soil here, just using little bits of like metal, like paper clips. I just folded into little prongs to just place them into the soil. And whether or not this really helped is kind of beyond me, but cutting back the plant really did make a worlds of a difference with this plant. I have new growth all over the plant now, and I totally called this the diva in my houseplant exhibition videos that I need to do another one of those soon. I had a good time making those, but I definitely talked about this one, calling it the diva, and I'm not going to say it's not a diva because, you know, sending off runners for literally years is kind of diva behavior. But now that we're getting a nice, beautiful looking plant, I'm feeling a lot better about this plant, that's for sure. I got this one from Steve's Leaves. I think I opened this in like my first Steve's Leaves unboxing that I ever did. That had to be at least 3 or 4 years ago, accurately. So I've had this plant for a good amount of time. Hopefully if you bring this plant home, you'll have a slightly better experience than me, but now that it's getting grown again, I'm feeling really good about it. In fact, this leaf right here, as you can see, even has some inner fenestrations, which I'm here for it. I'm all about it. More development in the leaves tells me that this plant is happy, and now I have this living inside my little IKEA greenhouse cabinet in my bedroom, which I will show you when I do my houseplant tour video, which, bookkeeping real quick before we move on, I totally said last month that I would be having my houseplant tour video for this apartment up last month, 1000%. Right after that video, I was experiencing major technical problems with my phone, which is actually what I use to film. I actually sat down and filmed this video a couple weeks ago, and I actually did not film it apparently because I did not have a product to show you. And then the following week, after that project completely failed, I had major problems with my computer. So I had to replace both my phone and my computer, which was a lot of fun, as you could imagine. But now I'm back at it with a new phone, new computer, new technology. However, houseplant tour videos are a feat. They are a long project, and I'm just getting used to this new computer. I haven't even done an actual project on it. So this is my practice project before I do my full-ass houseplant tour. So thank you for your patience. Not one single person has said anything calling me out on that, but I am a man true to my words, so I just wanted to address that real quick, okay? Cool. Anyway, Amidrium Zipelianum, super cool plant. You can see how similar, once again, if I hold up this plant just like I did with the Aglaonema and the Syndopsis, that these have very, very similar vibes, but they are completely different plants. But you can see how closely related they are, that's for certain. Although with these plants, one might argue that they look like they might be closer related to palms, which I really want to try growing, like a good palm tree. Not like a more tropical palm. I want one of those more like ethereal palms, like the fishtail palm, or is it the mermaid palm? What do they call it? I don't know what they call it, but there's so many names for all these freaking plants that common names don't even mean anything anymore. Anyway, while we are on the topic of fenestrations in the leaves, let's discuss this work of art right here. So this is an Epipremnum Pinatum marble. Marble totally checks out for the variation name. This, as Epipremnum Pinatum suggests, is extremely closely related to the Cebu blue pothos, the Epipremnum Pinatum Cebu blue, which has taken the market by storm. I remember when that thing was hard to find. So this is a newer variety of that's recently hit the market, and I think it is just stellar with this white variegation that isn't turning brown. I've had this thing for a couple months now. It's grown some nice new leaves for me. I will admit, the first thing I thought when I opened this thing in the unboxing that I did with Plant Haven Toronto is, this thing is so gorgeous. How long until it turns brown? I don't think it's gonna turn brown, baby. It's continuously growing new leaves for me. I feel like each vine has grown at least 2 new leaves for me since I got this plant. And I don't know what to do with it. I don't know if I want to put it on a moss pole. I don't know if I want to put it on one of my trellises. I don't know if I want to just let it be for a little while, like start forming some vines, and then when it's formed some vines, maybe have it climb up something. But I feel like with this already having some of the holes or the fenestrations on the leaves, which are usually induced by maturity, I kind of want to have this thing growing upright. I think it's going to look its best then, especially if these gorgeously variegated leaves just grow a little bit larger as the newer leaves on this, since it was grown from middle joint cuttings, whatever we call them, grew in small at first, and then they're getting a little bit larger with the second leaf. So once we get to like the 3rd or 4th leaf, I think we're gonna be back on par with the size of this. And then I can decide what I wanna do. I haven't even planted it up in anything yet, as you can see. A lot of thoughts go into a plant that's as gorgeous as this, as you could imagine. This is giving me like the Snow Queen pothos, Epipremnum aureum version of Epipremnum Pinatum, which is fabulous because Marble Queen's great, but Snow Queen takes it to the next level, and it's just, it's unnatural. It's like unnatural, this variegation, but I'm led to believe it's natural. Unless they're just like spraying these with gamma rays or something. I don't know. You let me know in the comments. I clearly don't know. But I'm just not usually a sucker for variegated plants. I've never been just like, I need this certain variegated plant trend. I'm more about getting like a specific species of plant than I am the variegated version of it. But this is amazing. It does it for me. I feel like, why do I need any other variegated plants when I have the Epipremnum Pinatum marble? That's exactly how I feel about this. And maybe you'd feel the same way too. Maybe you'd feel satiated from all your cravings, your variegated cravings. Definitely one that I have to keep near me at all times because it's just so beautiful. I have to just lay my eyes on it at least once a day, which those perfectly pristine leaves are the perfect segue to this lovely plant right here, which brown edge alert. It's still perfectly healthy. So this is an Adelonema, mixed up some letters there, crinipes. So this is looking much more like an alocasia. I'm not talking about any other alocasia today, so this is gonna have to get your fix if you're one of those alocasia people. It's also giving me that like Philodendron Maybe Eye. Has anybody tried growing that successfully? Because it did not grow very well for me when I tried that a couple years ago. Gorgeous, gorgeous houseplant, giving those caladium vibes. But this Adelonema crinipes is a newer plant on the market. This was something that Steve's Leaves is growing recently. I'm sure there's probably other people growing it, but I know this is something for certain that you can find on stevesleaves.com. And did I not say already? You can use code phillyfoliage to save 15% on stevesleaves.com. The brown edging on this plant is completely caused by my ignorance. This is a thirsty houseplant. I still need to repot this because it dries out very quickly in this plastic container. It needs to be potted up in something like 2 to 3 inches in diameter larger, which is not something I would typically recommend. I wouldn't even dream of potting it inside this terracotta planter right here. It would dry out so quick, this thing would be like dead in a week. So if you do not water this thing in time, it will wilt beyond. Like, it wilts like a deflated balloon that's been stomped on the ground. You won't even believe it comes back to life so well. I need to do a time lapse. It's like embarrassing how dead this plant looks when you haven't watered it, but recovers so incredibly well. However, if you do it too many times or let it sit for too long, you are going to get some of this brown edging on the leaves. So just something to keep in mind there. But as the new leaves are coming in, they come in more and more gorgeous, and I'm more likely to keep an eye on this houseplant. When I got this plant from Steve's Leaves, it was just one main plant in the pot, but as Some aroids do, like alocasias and colocasias and aglaonemas, as I was talking about earlier. This is starting to produce some baby plants. So I actually have 2 little babies that have started to work their way out of the soil. One has 3 leaves on it, one only has 1 little leaf on it, so still has some work to do, but I'm led to believe that by the end of the summertime, there might be a few more babies that have emerged their way out of the pot, which tells me that you might start with just 1 plant with this, but in due time, you're going to have a really nice full pot of this. So it's just one of those plants that keeps on giving. And I'm obviously growing this inside. I have this sitting inside my IKEA greenhouse cabinet to try to keep the humidity up. But I could imagine if you're to grow this out on like a shaded patio or shaded porch, anywhere in the shade outside, not full sun, that this would grow incredibly well. I feel like this would fill out a pot in no time, and just that glowing midrib is just really something to behold. I really am such a big fan of the characteristics that this plant has. My favorite characteristic is probably the worst. It's the petiole. Oh my God, it feels so terrible that it's good. Like so bad it's good, you know what I mean? It's giving, what did I say? Salad fingers and the rusty spoons. I think that's what I said in my unboxing video, and that still holds. It's like nails on a chalkboard for your finger. It feels so terrible that I freaking love it. Ugh, it's just so terrible that it's good. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna hate it so much that you love it. Put that aside, this is definitely the plant I'm talking about today that's the most out there. Like, this is a variety of aroid that's really not seen. I've never heard of Adelonema before until Steve's Leaves brought my attention to it. So I'm sure there's so many more aroids just like this that are so incredible, but just really not very well known whatsoever. I really gotta find this one a good glazed ceramic pot. I think it completely has the potential to be the star of the show, especially out on like a pool patio, like in a shaded spot. I don't know why, but just that's giving for me. Maybe I just really want a pool though. That'd be really nice with the weather that we've been having. So next up, we're gonna talk about my Philodendron camposportoanum. Another one of those gibberish names that just make you feel like you're not saying real words. I feel like you say plant words for too much and you literally just feel like you're not speaking a real language. Anyway, this had a lot more going on with it. We cut it back for one of my videos that I do with my houseplant tips and tricks series. So pardon its appearance, but at least we have some leaves on it, because when I cut it back, it was just this stump right here, and I was, my God, what did I do with them? I was propagating this. I have no idea what I did with the leaf cuttings or the stem cuttings. I'll find them. I'm sure they're somewhere. This is a finite space. Anyway, this plant has grown a couple leaves for me, and this is not going to give you everything that it needs to for this. So this plant gets some really nice winged, lobed leaves. This is just kind of giving like a standard philodendron micans right now, which fabulous philodendron, but available everywhere for good reason, because it's fantastic. Camposportoanum is less beautiful. That sounds so rude. It's a gorgeous plant. It just doesn't hold itself as gorgeously as the philodendron micans. So this does tend to get like longer internodes, so spaces between the leaves are going to be probably like 6 inches plus on this plant. I know that's like an inch apart now, but it's because it's just getting going. I had this climbing up the trellis before it got a little too out of hand. And those winged, lobed leaves are just really stellar, especially with the color of the leaf. It's like this weird reddish green combination that's like almost iridescent, but almost not, and just like super, super thin. It's a very different philodendron compared to ones that we are more keen to purchasing, like the Philodendron gloriosum, for example. This is not going to give you that luscious, gorgeous vibe. It's going to give you character. So if you enjoy character, this is definitely one for you. I got this one from the Potted Elephant a couple years ago, and like I said, grew really well for me. Just got way out of hand. And then I actually left it in like a box. This is way too much information, but I like left it in a moving box when I was moving. And by the time I got to it, the leaves were just like fried. So it's why we started out from where we are now. And in just a couple of months, I know this is going to be giving the same exact vibe that it was giving in my old space. I feel like most philodendrons are all like, you definitely want to have this one climb, or you definitely want to let this one trail. This one, it's really buyer's choice. You can have it climb up. Like I said, the internodes are still probably going to be pretty far away, so it's kind of a fun one to let trail because the leaves don't get like ridiculously huge. I don't think it's that difficult to achieve the mature leaves without support. Doesn't even really seem to give a crap about supports when I give it that anyway. So just a plant that really seems to have a mind of its own. Just another reason to love it even more. But if you are a really big fan of that like velvety iridescence that Philodendron micans has, or like Philodendron melanochrysum, the black gold velvet philodendron, whatever the hell it's called, then definitely give Philodendron camposportoanum a try, especially if you love ridiculously hard to pronounce plants. I really love this one though. I feel like it kind of bridges the gap from like the standard just Philodendron hederaceum and the micans and stuff to some of those more fun philodendrons like the Philodendron Maybe Eye. All philodendrons are fun. You know what I'm saying though. You walk into your local houseplant store, you're gonna see a tray full of micans. You're not gonna see a tray full of camposportoanum, but if you do, like I said, please tell the people who are working at those stores that they're doing a really good job. And what are we on, the 9th one? There's so many plants to talk about today. I need to stop doing these 10 plants video. I think 5 or 6 is good enough. So this is my Philodendron holtonianum. I had to figure out what this was. I got this from one of my friends, the same friend who gave me the mamei and the Monstera. She was in Florida a couple years ago. Once again, I'm giving you way too much information, but she was at a greenhouse in Florida that just had like a bunch of random plants with just like Sharpied names on the sides of the pots that were all incorrect, which keeps things so exciting when you don't know what you're getting, but you're paying a really good price for it. I think I paid like $12 for the pot of this plant. So it said Syngonium on the side of it. I feel like every time I've asked you guys what this plant is called, I always hear Syngonium tri-leaf wonder, which, yeah, dummies, that's not it. Did not seriously mean that. If I offended you, come on. Anyway, so this is a Philodendron holtonianum, as I mentioned. Actually, thank you to the people at Steve's Leaves for letting me know what this is, because I could have not figured out what it was on my own, and clearly you guys are no help. I'm kidding. I appreciate all of the help that you guys give me. I promise you. Just like the Philodendron camposportoanum, this thing grew up my trellis in my last place, and just like, once again, the Philodendron camposportoanum, I left this in a moving box for probably about a month, and it wasn't too happy with me. It held on better than the Philodendron camposportoanum, mind you, because those leaves are super thin. They're skinny legends over there, but these are more typical philodendron leaves, and they hung on a little bit better. Still didn't look fabulous. I remember I moved here, I threw it up on the trellis with my Soltech light, code Nick2023 to save 15% on soltech.com, babes. Done plugging for the rest of this episode, I promise. So I put this under the light, but it got way too close to the light. I remember this leaf was like literally like 2 inches away from the light, and so it started to get sun bleached a little bit because the light is a very good light, so it's doing the job. And I had to pull it off. I cut the whole thing back, and I propagated all these bits and pieces, so I turned one philodendron into presumably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 philodendrons, which is very exciting, presumably because not all of them have grown, although it looks like all of them have new growth on it. This one back here might be a goner, but we have some good promising growth on this Philodendron holtonianum, already a plant that's really hard to get your hands on, or really hard to find at least at your local houseplant stores. I'm sure it's easier to come across online, but it's just really exciting when you turn one plant into basically 10, which I remember was the goal for the Philodendron camposportoanum houseplant tips and tricks videos, so I really need to find out where those cuttings are. Very, very good at losing my focus, as you all probably know at this point. Such a fun leaf shape with just these little wings that come up, way more intense. It's like a T. It's really just like, it's just a T. It's really cool. It's like the mini version of all those larger leaf, like the, what is it, the 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 philodendron. You all know what I'm talking about. The one that has like the similar leaf shape, but it's just like 10 times the size. And as I mentioned for the Monstera Subpanata, this is the apartment appropriate version. So I'm more than happy with this, especially for the $10 to $15 that I spent on this versus whatever those Philodendron Maybe Eyes and the 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 ones. I know that's not the freaking name, but whatever those cost now, it's way too much. This is much more appropriate, although I don't know if you can find this for $15 online. Let's just move on to the last one. So, the last one is so exciting for me. This is another one that I got from Steve's Leaves. Pardon if you can see the Syndopsis, I just need to get out of the way. So, oh my gosh, this makes me so happy. So, it's not going to give the full energy as its young form. I got this one recently in a Steve's Leaves unboxing in the past like 4 months or so. This is a Thaumatophyllum stenolobum. So I think prior, this was reclassified to a Thaumatophyllum in the last couple of years. I think prior to that, this was just called a Philodendron stenolobum. Think like Philodendron hope or Philodendron bipinnatifidum was renamed to Thaumatophyllum bipinnatifidum. And Thaumatophyllums are those philodendrons formerly known as, that have that full-on like woody trunk. In my own experience, Thaumatophyllums love light. They will thrive in full sun indoors, so a good amount of direct sunlight for a couple hours a day versus a standard philodendron. If it was sitting in direct sun for any more than an hour, I wouldn't be surprised if those leaves scorch and get kind of pale and ugly. This is not going to behave like that. In fact, I feel like the more light, the more encouraged it is to form a thicker and thicker trunk, and the leaves get larger and larger. When I first got this plant from Steve's Leaves, the leaves probably looked like this. It's not really giving that much. It's getting a little bit more mature now. You can see with a leaf like this, which I think is giving a little bit more on par to just like a standard philodendron burl marks. So I understand this plant's probably not doing everything for you as it is for me at this moment, but Google it. There is a really large one of these, I'm not positive if it's still there, but it was there for many years, at Terrain, which is a nearby store for me here in Philadelphia. It's actually owned by Urban Outfitters and Anthropology, but there's a couple of them smattered around the United States, and there's a couple of them in my area. And at the one location, they have this huge Thaumatophyllum stenolobum. And ever since I saw that thing for the first time, I was dying to add it to my collection, but it was just nowhere to be found. So I'm really happy that Steve's Leaves is now growing it, because now it's in my collection and I'm gonna be babying this thing. The only thing I can say negatively about Thaumatophyllums compared to philodendrons is that the leaves are a little bit more thin and they scream out to pests. Pests love these plants. My past Thaumatophyllum I had that it's now in my friend's possession, but it was a thrips magnet. I have noticed with the growing season coming that I have a couple of thrips on this plant that I clean them off with rubbing alcohol, and I bring in my green lacewing larvae that I do every so often, even though sometimes they bite me in my sleep. I still rely on them. I will admit that. I should do a video about it at some point. I can give you all of the honest truth about the green lacewings. That's for certain. Pest problems, minor issue with this plant, but as long as you're on top of it, this is a plant that, if it's gonna grow just like my other Thaumatophyllums do, then it's going to grow like a freaking weed. And I just potted it up in here in this little Berg's planter when I did a recent repotting video, but as some of you pointed out, I don't think it's gonna last in here for the whole summer. I'm sure the roots are already coming out of the bottom. So yeah, we're gonna have to consider getting this to maybe like a 6-inch planter, probably come July or August, and then it can live inside that planter throughout the winter. Then come next spring or summer, we're probably gonna have to get in like a 7 or 8-inch planter. I have high hopes for this thing, but we'll watch it grow together. I feel pretty confident with the way it's been already growing from how small it was when I first got it, that this thing is going to be one of my specimen plants here in my home in just a matter of time. So that's gonna wrap up today's video about 10 aroids that you won't find in your local houseplant stores. Just making sure quickly that I talked about every single one of these. Yes, I definitely did. And as I'm sure you saw, there is a hell of a lot of variety when it comes to all of these different members of the Araceae family, aroids. But there's also a lot of similarities as well, which I think personally keeps things super spicy. So I hope you discovered some new varieties. I hope you added something to your wish list, and hopefully I was able to push you in the right direction as to where you can go ahead and acquire said plant. So thank you so much for joining me today. I will leave all the plants I talked about in my description below. It's too many to do a little recap right now. But thank you so much for joining me. If you don't already, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at phillyfoliage. You can subscribe to my Patreon if you would like to support me monetarily. There's really nothing else on there though anymore, so just so you know. And subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hello, what are you doing? And I'll see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.